Rain pounded against the car windshield as Daniel slammed the steering wheel. "You're unbelievable, Laura," he shouted, his voice echoing through the small space. Laura sat quietly beside him, clutching her purse like a shield. Her eyes were red from holding back tears, but she said nothing. They had just left a friend's birthday dinner, and everyone had laughed. Not because of a joke from the birthday boy, but because of Daniel. "You should have seen yourself trying to squeeze into that chair," he had joked loudly at the table. "Maybe next time we'll bring our own bench from home." The table erupted in laughter, and Laura had forced a weak smile while her heart cracked quietly inside her chest. Now in the car, she whispered, "Why do you always have to make me a joke in front of people?" Daniel scoffed. "Oh, come on, it's just humor. You need to stop being so sensitive." "Sensitive?" Her voice trembled. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." Daniel smirked, glancing at her. "Maybe if you spent less time eating and more time at the gym, you wouldn't give them a reason to laugh." Her hand flew to her chest as if the words had cut her physically. The rain outside grew heavier, matching the weight in her chest. She turned to look out the window, and in her reflection, she saw not herself, but the woman he made her feel like. Unwanted, invisible, broken. Back home, Daniel stormed in first, tossing his keys on the counter. Laura followed slowly, her shoulders slumped. "Daniel," she said softly, "I don't deserve this. I've tried my best." "Tried your best?" he snapped. "You used to be attractive, Laura. What happened to that woman I married? Now you're just comfortable." She froze. That word, comfortable, was his favorite insult lately. Comfortable meant boring. Comfortable meant unattractive. Comfortable meant she had lost her worth in his eyes. He opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and plopped onto the couch, scrolling through his phone. "You know," he said without looking up, "Sarah from my office takes care of herself. Maybe you should learn from her." Laura swallowed hard, pain crawling up her throat. "Sarah?" she repeated. "The woman who keeps texting you after midnight?" He looked up slowly, annoyed. "It's called work, Laura. Not that you'd understand. You spend your days watching soap operas and eating snacks." Tears spilled from her eyes before she could stop them. "You don't see what I do for you," she whispered. "I clean, I cook, I take care of this house while you're out late every night." "Oh, please," he interrupted, waving his hand. "You don't work, Laura. You have no idea what stress feels like." That night, Laura lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling. His words replayed in her mind like a cruel song. "Maybe if you spent less time eating, you used to be attractive." Sarah from my office. Her heart ached, but somewhere deep beneath the pain, something else stirred. A small, quiet voice whispering that she couldn't live like this anymore. The next morning, Daniel was gone before sunrise, leaving behind his usual mess: half-finished coffee, unwashed dishes, and a note on the table that simply read, "Dinner with clients tonight. Don't wait up." Laura stood in the kitchen, staring at the note until the letters blurred. Then she took a deep breath and wiped her tears. She opened her laptop, searching for fitness videos. Not because she wanted to please Daniel, but because she wanted to feel alive again. Days passed. Every morning, she walked to the park, jogging slowly, then faster each day. Neighbors watched curiously. Some smiled, some whispered, but she ignored them. Each drop of sweat felt like she was washing away the insults. At first, Daniel didn't notice. He was too busy flirting at the office, too busy being admired by his coworkers. He told them proudly, "My wife doesn't care about her looks anymore." I guess that's what happens when you get too comfortable. They laughed, and he enjoyed the attention. But Laura's silence started to feel different. No longer weak, but calm. When he made jokes, she didn't argue. She just looked at him with sad eyes and said, "You'll regret the way you talked to me one day." One Friday evening, Daniel came home early and found Laura cooking dinner, humming softly. She looked radiant, tired but glowing in a way he hadn't seen in years. "What's all this?" he asked, dropping his briefcase. "Dinner," she said simply, not looking at him. As they ate, Daniel noticed she barely touched her food. "You on some diet now?" he teased. She smiled faintly. "You could say I'm working on myself." He chuckled. "Good, maybe I'll start showing you off again." Her fork paused midair. "I'm not doing this for you, Daniel." He raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? I'm doing it for me, because I deserve better than the way you've treated me." The confidence in her voice startled him. He tried to laugh it off, but deep down, something shifted. For the first time, Daniel felt a flicker of fear, not of losing her body, but of losing her. That night, when he reached for her in bed, she turned away. Not tonight, he frowned. What's wrong with you lately? She didn't answer. She just stared into the darkness, her hand resting over her heart as if protecting it from further damage. Over the next few weeks, Laura continued her transformation quietly. Her face thinned, her smile brightened, and her laughter, once rare, returned. She even joined a community yoga class where she met new friends who encouraged her journey. Meanwhile, Daniel's jokes grew weaker. They didn't land the way they used to. People had stopped laughing, sensing cruelty behind his words. Then one evening, he came home and found her suitcase by the door. "Laura, what's this?" She looked at him, calm and unshaken. "I'm leaving, Daniel." He laughed, thinking it was a bluff. "Leaving? Don't be ridiculous." She stepped closer, her voice steady. "You've ridiculed me for years. You've made me feel small, unwanted, ashamed. But I'm done feeling that way. I'm choosing peace over pain." He opened his mouth to protest, but for once, no words came out. Laura picked up her suitcase, turned toward the door, and said quietly, "One day, Daniel, you'll understand what you lost. And when that day comes, I hope you've learned how to love." The door closed softly behind her, leaving him standing there in stunned silence, the echo of her footsteps the only sound in the house. The days turned into weeks, and though they shared the same roof, Daniel and Laura began living like polite strangers. She stopped asking if he wanted dinner and stopped waiting up for him when he stayed out late. The sound of her laughter, the one that used to fill the house, was gone. Now, all Daniel heard was silence, the kind that made his own thoughts echo too loudly. One evening, Daniel's friend Marcus came over to watch the game. Marcus had always been the life of the party, confident, loud, and single. As they settled on the couch with beer cans scattered across the coffee table, Marcus looked around. "Where's Laura? Haven't seen her in ages." "She's upstairs," Daniel muttered, eyes fixed on the screen. Marcus chuckled. "Man, you've got it made. She takes care of the house, doesn't complain, and from what I remember, she used to be a bombshell. What happened?" Daniel smirked, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "She let herself go. Guess marriage does that to people." Marcus laughed, shaking his head. "You? Stuck with that? I'd lose my mind." Daniel forced a laugh too, but something inside him twisted. The words hit different when someone else said them. Later, when Marcus left, Daniel found himself staring at the family photo on the mantel. Laura, smiling shyly beside him on their wedding day. She looked radiant, full of life. He picked up the frame and brushed the dust off it, but as he set it down, guilt crept in. That night, he came to bed late, as usual. Laura was awake, scrolling through her phone, the glow reflecting off her tired face. "Laura," he started, voice uncertain, "you've been quiet lately." She didn't look up. "What's there to say, Daniel? Every time I talk, you find a way to remind me I'm not enough." He sighed. "You're taking things too seriously. You know I was joking." She turned to him finally, her eyes sharp but wet. "A joke stops being funny when it breaks someone's spirit." He had no response. She turned off the light and rolled away from him. For the first time, Daniel realized how cold the other side of the bed could feel. Days later, Laura announced she'd joined a local fitness club. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Since when are you into that?" "Since I got tired of feeling invisible," she replied simply. At first, he laughed it off, certain she'd give up in a week. But she didn't. Every morning before sunrise, she'd lace up her sneakers and head out. Daniel would wake to the sound of the door closing, and part of him felt irritated. The kind of irritation that comes when someone starts doing something you thought they couldn't. Weeks passed. She started eating healthier, cooking separate meals, spending less time around him. The girls at the club became her friends, women who cheered each other on. One day, she came home glowing with sweat, her cheeks flushed, her energy contagious. Daniel caught himself staring, and it unsettled him. She hadn't changed much yet, but her confidence, that quiet determination, made her seem different. Then came the evening that changed everything. Daniel had a company event, one of those fancy dinners meant for showing off. He asked Laura to come, mostly out of obligation. She hesitated, but agreed. When she stepped out that night, wearing a deep emerald dress that hugged her softly but elegantly, the room fell silent for a second. Daniel blinked. This was the same woman he'd been mocking for months. At the event, people greeted her warmly, complimenting her smile and poise. Daniel noticed how easily she carried herself, how men who used to overlook her now paid attention. For the first time, jealousy burned in his chest. But karma was patient and sharper than he could imagine. While Laura excused herself to the restroom, Daniel's coworker Clara leaned over. Clara was young, bold, and had been flirting with Daniel at the office for months. "So that's your wife?" she whispered, half smirking. "You always made her sound like a mess. She's actually beautiful." Daniel forced a laugh. "Yeah, well, she's been trying lately." Clara tilted her head. "Trying? No, Daniel, she is. You're the one who doesn't seem to see it." It was meant as a tease, but it landed like a slap. That night in the car, silence filled the space between them. Laura looked out the window, her reflection faint in the glass. "You know," she said softly, "for a long time I believed I wasn't enough. I thought maybe if I changed, you'd look at me the way you used to." He gripped the steering wheel. "Laura, But now," she interrupted, voice calm but firm, "I realize I don't need you to see me that way. I just need to see myself again." He wanted to argue, but there was something final in her tone. That night, she slept soundly. Daniel didn't. Over the next months, her transformation became undeniable. Not just physically, though the weight she lost was visible, but emotionally. She smiled more, laughed again, dressed up even for casual errands. She was reclaiming the light he'd dimmed. Daniel, meanwhile, found himself shrinking. His coworkers teased him for losing focus, for being distracted. He started checking Laura's social media, pictures of her hiking, volunteering, smiling with new friends. Each post cut him deeper. One afternoon, he came home early and found Laura sitting at the dining table, sorting through papers. "What's all this?" he asked. She looked up, steady. "It's the divorce papers, Daniel." His chest tightened. "What? Laura, no. I've tried," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "But I can't stay in a marriage where I'm mocked instead of loved." Daniel's mouth went dry. "You can't just throw away years like this." She stood, meeting his gaze. "You threw it away the moment you stopped respecting me." The words sliced through him. For once, there was no sarcasm, no defense, just pain. As she walked past him, suitcase in hand, he whispered, "Laura, please." But she didn't stop. The sound of the door closing behind her echoed louder than any insult he'd ever spoken. When Laura left, the house didn't just feel empty. It felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by echoes of everything Daniel had taken for granted. Her laughter used to fill the living room. Her soft humming drifted from the kitchen. Her perfume lingered on the stairs. Now there was nothing. Just silence. And the distant hum of the refrigerator that seemed to mock him for every cruel word he'd ever said. The first week, Daniel told himself it was just a phase. She'd calm down, come home, and they'd talk. He even rehearsed apologies in his head, not because he truly understood yet, but because he hated losing control. But a week turned into a month, and Laura didn't come back. She didn't call. She didn't text. The only thing that arrived was a formal notice from her lawyer, confirming that she'd filed for divorce. Daniel's chest tightened as he read it. The woman he'd mocked, dismissed, and belittled, the one who had quietly endured so much, was really gone. He threw himself into work to escape his thoughts. But even there, things began to crumble. Sarah, the same coworker who'd flirted with him, started avoiding him after rumors spread that he'd been dumped. Some of his colleagues whispered behind his back, others offered pitying glances. One day, during a board meeting, Daniel's manager pulled him aside. "You've been off your game, Daniel. Missed deadlines, sloppy presentations. What's going on?" He rubbed his eyes. "It's personal stuff. I'm working through it." The manager sighed. "Work through it fast. You're one mistake away from suspension." That night, Daniel came home to a half-empty fridge and the cold comfort of takeout boxes. He scrolled through his phone, searching Laura's profile. Her new photos stunned him. She was glowing, standing beside her new gym friends, smiling by the beach, her posture radiating confidence. And there was one photo that hit hardest, Laura in a simple summer dress, laughing with a man beside her. He wasn't holding her, but the way she leaned toward him said everything. Daniel's stomach dropped. He zoomed in, trying to read her expression. She looked happy, genuinely happy, the way she hadn't looked in years, not since before his cruel jokes began. He threw the phone on the couch and buried his face in his hands. "What have I done?" he whispered. The next day, he drove to the gym she used to attend, hoping maybe he'd catch her there. When he walked in, the receptionist recognized her name immediately. "Laura? Oh, she's amazing. She actually started coaching beginners now. Inspires everyone here." Daniel froze. "She's a coach?" "Yeah," the receptionist smiled. Her transformation story really motivated people. She even shared how she overcame toxic criticism. She's helping others rebuild their confidence. That word, toxic, stung. He left the gym feeling smaller than ever. A few days later, Daniel's mother called. "I saw Laura the other day," she said gently. "She looked wonderful." He forced a small laugh. "Yeah, she's doing fine." "Daniel," his mother's tone softened. "You were never cruel as a boy. What happened to you?" He had no answer. By the time the divorce was finalized, Daniel had lost not only his wife, but also his peace. Nights were sleepless, mornings dull. His friends stopped coming around, and even Marcus, the one who'd once laughed with him, said, "Bro, you messed up. She was a good woman. You'll realize that too late." And that was when karma decided to finish its lesson. Daniel was assigned a new project at work, one that involved collaborating with a health and wellness company. During the first virtual meeting, he froze when he saw the name on the presentation slides. Laura Anderson, wellness coach and speaker. It couldn't be. But when the camera turned on, there she was, polished, composed, professional. The same woman he once mocked now sat before him as a guest consultant for the very company that had hired him. "Hello, everyone," she said, her voice calm. "It's good to be here." Daniel swallowed hard. She didn't even flinch when she saw him. Not a flicker of emotion, just quiet confidence. After the meeting, he stayed behind. "Laura, can we talk?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. They met at a cafe nearby, a public place, neutral ground. He spoke first. "You look great. I mean, not just physically. You seem happy." She smiled faintly. "I am. I've been meaning to say." "Daniel," she interrupted softly, "you don't owe me explanations anymore. You just need to be honest with yourself." He sighed. "I was stupid. I thought teasing was harmless. I thought you'd always be there no matter what I said. But when you left, I realized how much I depended on your kindness." Laura looked at him, her eyes calm but unreadable. "I didn't leave to hurt you. I left to save myself. You broke something in me, Daniel, but I had to rebuild it, and this time, without you." He nodded, tears threatening. "I don't expect forgiveness. I'm proud of you." That was the truth. For the first time in years, he felt admiration rather than ownership. Laura stood up, adjusting her bag. "Take care of yourself, Daniel. Maybe next time you love someone, you'll remember that love isn't measured by appearances, but by respect." She left him sitting there, the clinking of coffee cups filling the silence she once filled with laughter. That night, Daniel opened his laptop and began typing a resignation letter. He couldn't focus on his corporate life anymore, not after realizing how empty it felt. Instead, he volunteered to assist at a local youth mentorship program. He started small, teaching young men about empathy, about how words could wound more than fists ever could. Months passed. He changed, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. And one day, while scrolling online, he came across a short video, Laura giving a motivational talk. The caption read, "You can rise again, no matter who tried to tear you down." He watched till the end, and when she smiled at the audience and said, "If you've ever been broken, remember, your worth was never defined by anyone else," he smiled too. Maybe that was karma's lesson, not punishment, but awareness, the kind that stays forever. Daniel replayed that video at least a dozen times that night. Every word Laura said felt aimed right at him, not in bitterness, but in truth. He didn't cry, not the loud, messy kind of crying. Instead, quiet tears rolled down his face, the kind that come from finally understanding what you once destroyed. He looked around his apartment, spotless but soulless. There were no photos on the wall, no scent of home-cooked food, no laughter, just a man and his guilt. That weekend, he decided to do something he'd never done before, help someone without expecting anything in return. He joined a local support group for divorced men and listened as they spoke about their mistakes. Some blamed their wives, some blamed fate. Daniel didn't. When it was his turn, he said quietly, "I mocked the woman who loved me. I made her feel small to make myself feel big, and I lost her because of it. I don't want pity. I just want to be better than the man I was." The room was silent for a moment before one man clapped, then another. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt something like peace. Weeks turned into months, and slowly life began to move again. He got his focus back at work, but more importantly, he started mentoring young employees, reminding them to treat people with kindness. He apologized to colleagues he'd snapped at, and even reached out to Laura's parents to say he was sorry for how he'd treated their daughter. They were polite, but distant. He didn't expect more. Some bridges, he knew, were meant to stay crossed. One afternoon, as Daniel walked home from a community event, he saw a familiar figure at the park, Laura. She was sitting on a bench, reading a book, the sun catching the edges of her hair. He hesitated, then approached slowly. She looked up and smiled, not coldly, not warmly, just kindly. "Daniel?" "Hey," he said softly. "Mind if I sit?" "Sure." For a few moments, they said nothing, just listened to the laughter of kids playing nearby. Finally, Daniel said, "I watched your talk. It was powerful." Laura smiled faintly. "Thank you. It wasn't easy sharing all that, but if my story helps even one person, it's worth it." He nodded. "It helped one person already. Me." She turned to him, eyes calm. "I'm glad, Daniel. Truly." He swallowed. "I still think about us sometimes, about the good parts. I ruined something beautiful." Laura closed her book gently. "We both grew from it. You learned your lesson, and I learned my worth. Sometimes that's what life is, learning through pain." He chuckled sadly. "Yeah, karma's got a cruel way of teaching." "Maybe not cruel," she said softly, "just honest." They sat there for a while longer, two people who had once shared everything, now sharing silence, not heavy but peaceful. When she finally stood to leave, she said, "Take care of yourself, Daniel. You deserve peace too." He watched her walk away, and for the first time, he didn't feel bitterness or regret, just gratitude for the lesson, for the pain, for the woman who had unknowingly saved him by walking away. That night, he recorded a short video, something he'd never done before. Sitting in front of the camera, he spoke plainly. "I used to mock my wife," he said. "I thought it was funny, life harmless. I thought I was being honest when I was really being cruel. And karma, she taught me the hardest lesson. She showed me that words can destroy, that love can vanish, and that respect, once lost, is the hardest thing to rebuild." If you're watching this and you've ever made someone feel small for their looks, their weight, their flaws, stop. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize you weren't making jokes. You were pushing away the best thing you ever had. He paused, looking straight at the lens. "Laura, if you ever see this, thank you. You made me face myself, and to everyone else, love better. Be kind, because karma listens." He uploaded the video that night, not expecting anything. But within days, it spread like wildfire. Comments poured in from men and women alike, people who had been hurt, people who had changed, people who saw themselves in his story. I cried watching this. This man took accountability, respect. I hope my ex sees this too. This made me think twice about how I talked to my partner. Daniel didn't respond to most comments, but he read every single one. And when one username at @LAndersonFit commented, "Proud of your growth," his heart stopped for a moment. He smiled. That was enough. Months later, he started speaking publicly about empathy and relationships. He wasn't famous or rich, but he had peace. He had meaning. Sometimes he'd see Laura's face pop up on motivational pages, and instead of pain, he felt pride. One evening, after a small seminar, a young man approached him. "Sir," he said nervously, "I saw your video months ago. I used to make fun of my girlfriend for her weight. She almost left me, but because of your story, I changed. I apologized. Now, we're engaged." Daniel blinked back tears. "That's beautiful, son. Don't ever forget, love grows where kindness lives." As the crowd cleared, Daniel looked up at the sky. The sun dipped low, painting the world in gold. He whispered to himself, maybe that's what karma wanted all along. Not revenge, just realization. And as he walked away, for the first time in years, he felt light. Not because he'd forgotten his past, but because he'd finally made peace with it. If you were touched by this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, one story can remind someone of their worth. See you in the next video.